Today on CityCast Denver, the sun is finally out and the rivers are running high. I know I'm not the only one daydreaming about getting some friends together for a day of tubing, but where and how? We've got Rocky Mountain PBS reporter and bona fide tubing enthusiast Alison Berg on the show to answer all the questions you need to know before you go. Today is Monday, June 26th. I'm Paul Karolyi in for Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Alison Berg, welcome to CityCast Denver.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
So, Alison, I hear you're a big tubing person. I would love to try it this summer. What do you think is the first step?
It's all kind of dependent on what you're looking for. So if you want to stay within, 20, 30 minutes of Denver, the city of Golden has great tubing. It does get pretty crowded because it's like right next door. Going down the Clear Creek is great. You get in on, I forget what the park is called, but by the baseball field in like downtown Golden, and then you get out by Coors Brewery. What's nice about tubing in Golden is it's super safe. There's like a man-made barricade before you get anywhere close to Coors Factory, so that you would have to really, really try to get yourself into unsafe waters when you go to Golden.
Okay, sounds like safety's clearly a big concern. We'll talk about that. But what do you look for in a good tubing location? Because I don't even know what like a good experience would be.
I think the biggest things I would look for are accessibility. So is it easy to find? Is it, if something did happen, is it easy to call for help? Beauty, which is nice. I mean, when you're on any river, there's going to be beautiful views, but I think the higher you go into the mountains, the prettier it gets. And fun. I mean, I want to make sure that I'm not necessarily looking for like a whitewater rafting type of experience, but I want to have fun.
Like an exhilarating tubing adventure. It's more about relaxing and kicking back and yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Nice. The tube seems like a big thing and I don't know where to get one. Do I rent one? Do I buy one?
Yeah, you can do either one. So every town that you would go to that has tubing will assuredly have like an outdoor sports rentals place where you can rent like kayaks and tubes and rafts and whatever. In my experience, rentals are usually about like $15 to $25 for the day, kind of depending on the size of the tube and the place. If you go on a weekend, it might be more expensive, those kinds of things. You can also buy one kind of wherever you would think that you could buy one. Walmart and Target usually have them. Outdoor sporting goods stores, I think some outdoor sporting stores will even rent them from Denver and you can take them for the day and bring them back that night, which is always nice. And I think if you buy your own, they're probably in like the $40-ish range. But I mean, if you're planning on going more than like twice, that does kind of pay for itself.
Hey, there you go. I love that. I love a bargain, Alison. That's something you got to know about me. I love a bargain.
Yeah, me too.
How about you? Like, what is your number one favorite place to go tubing?
I used to cover, so I worked at the newspaper in Steamboat Springs for about 2 years. And I mean, I had never been river tubing before that. That's kind of where I learned everything I know about tubing. And I am such a Steamboat fan. I know it's kind of hard to get to from Denver. It's not the most accessible place, but it is beautiful. I personally think it's a lot more humble than some of the other ski towns we have around us. It's certainly not affordable, but it's also not quite as just like gaudy and over the top as say Aspen or Vail. And tubing the Yampa River, which runs through Steamboat Springs, is just one of my favorite experiences. There's just so many happy people. You're flowing down mountains, or next to mountains, I should say. And it's just beautiful. So Steamboat Springs would have to be my favorite.
Steamboat Springs. I love it. A little bit more chill.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about Golden. I've also heard people talk about Lyons and Littleton. Like, what are some other places that people should know about that they might want to try?
I've been to Littleton. I have not been to Lyons. I've been to Littleton. I've been to Salida. And I think those are the four I've done: Salida, Steamboat, Golden, and Littleton. Littleton's nice too because it's also really close to Denver, and I feel like it's nowhere near as crowded as Golden, so that's nice.
All right, here's an important question because I know we had a really wet winter and that the runoff waters in our creeks and rivers are really strong right now. Is that a good thing for tubing, or is that something I should be worried about?
Yes. So I actually talked with one of my former river sources up in Steamboat Springs before coming on this podcast because I wanted some more information about this. And normally by like mid end of June, flows are exactly where they should be, and they might even be getting too. They're starting to get too low to tube. At least, but normally when we've been having these really dry years, as we've had the last several, however many years, because last winter was so unusually wet, for lack of a better word. It just brought so much precipitation. Things are different now. And so at least up in the mountains, like west of the tunnel, like the mountains, you probably won't be looking at safe tubing until like end of July at soonest,
Really?
is what my source in Steamboat Springs told me. And so that may differ from place to place, but seeing as how all of the mountains got so much snow, and you really need flows to be, like, you need to be able to stand up and not have the water cover above your chest if you're tubing, because you really need to be able to be safe. It could be another month or so before things are ready, and then it'll be interesting to see how late into the fall, because usually flows get too low around like July, but it'll be interesting to see how late into the fall we can keep going.
So that's up in the mountains, right? Where it's like these waters are really, really high. But down on the plains, you think late June, early July is a good time?
I checked the City of Golden's website, and I know that flows are still too high on the Clear Creek right now, which is, right next door to
Mhm.
Denver. But we'd probably be looking at, just my guess, like the next couple weeks, I would guess. Because it is, especially, it's looking like it's going to start getting pretty hot soon.
Yeah.
So I would guess next couple weeks.
All right. So maybe I have some time to do like a beginner tubing experience in Golden or Littleton and get myself ready and confident to go up for some more adventurous tubing up in the mountains later in July. Sounds great. Sounds great.
This episode is brought to you by Levitt Pavilion. Because they're free, all ages summer concert season runs through September. And let's be honest, we all know Levitt is the best. It's an outdoor all-ages amphitheater based in Ruby Hill Park in southwest Denver, just 10 minutes from downtown. Have you guys been to shows at Levitt? I'm going this Saturday. Check out affordably priced shows like Heartless Bastards, Charlie Tuna, and Flor de Toloache. They're like the first all-female mariachi band from New York that does a Nirvana medley in mariachi style. I was like, were you made for me? Were you a band that was created for me? And you can see tons of free shows too, like La Dama, Soccer Mommy, Flowbots, and more. Bring a picnic or buy dinner from one of the many rotating local food trucks, grab drinks at their well-stocked bar, and enjoy music under the stars at Levitt. RSVP for free shows, buy tickets, and check out VIP packages at levittdenver.org. That's LEVITT Denver.org.
Circling back to safety, Allison, I just have to tell you, I've heard some horror stories about people getting really, really hurt while tubing. Obviously, I don't want that to happen to me. What do you recommend? What should I be thinking about?
So I always wear a life jacket, even if the flows are low enough that like the water's not even really hitting my knees. I would still wear a life jacket because you just don't know. Even if the water is shallow, rapids can be fast, and I just feel better wearing a life jacket. That said, I go out tubing and I see a lot of people who don't. So, and they seem to be fine. So I think it's up to you, the life jacket thing. I don't wear a helmet. That feels like a little bit of overkill. Some people do, and I think there's no shame in playing it safe. But better safe than sorry. So people do wear helmets. I don't think the helmet thing is absolutely necessary, although it is somewhat of a common experience to be be kind of kicked out of your tube at some point with the rapids and with like maybe a dip in the water. So a helmet is not a terrible idea because there are rocks at the bottom of those rivers and things can happen.
Okay.
But a life jacket, I would say, is a big one.
Okay. So life jacket, maybe a helmet. What else? What else should I bring with me for a tubing day?
I always wear chacos specifically because I have the ones that like strap around your feet so you're not going to lose them. Um, the first time I went tubing, I wore like flip-flops that did not do that and I lost them. So, lesson learned, do not wear shoes that can fall off of your feet because there's a high probability that they will and you won't get them back and then it's polluting the river and it's just bad all around. So wear shoes that won't come off of your feet. If you really want, you can rent or buy water shoes. I don't usually do that, but people do. But any pair of shoes that is like strapped all the way around the foot is good.
Hmm. Allison, I think I'm going to be bringing my Crocs.
Do it. Bring the Crocs. That sounds perfect.
So like you mentioned life jacket, swimsuit. What about like a cooler? Do people bring a cooler, drinks, picnic?
The biggest thing is you really want to be careful to not get trash in the rivers. These rivers are already going through a lot of stress and strain with climate change, and warming temperatures and less snow on an average year. And so polluting them is just really, really sad and it's not a good thing to do. Um, and so if you do bring drinks, what I like to do is I will either rent a tube that has a cup holder so that the can or the bottle or the whatever isn't going anywhere. Or I will just make sure to hold it in my hand the whole time and make sure that it does not leave my hand. If you do want to bring, several drinks or some snacks, you could always get like a waterproof bag and tie that to the tube. I see people do that. I think that's great. As long as whatever you're bringing is secured to you or secured to the tube and it's not going to fall off into the river, then I think you're good.
Did you ever hear about people just like, some of these places sound like a little bit more established, like tube rental shops. And, I'm assuming there's like restaurants and, food carts, people selling stuff. Do you ever just like toss your tube in a river, like off in the backcountry? Is that a thing? Backcountry tubing?
Um, yes, it's a thing. I don't know if it's a thing I would recommend to the general public because, again, the water, especially in a year like this where we had so much snow, that may not be the safest thing. I mean, it's very Colorado. People love backcountry sports, and I think it's assumed that you do those things at your own risk. And I think if somebody is a competent enough swimmer and maybe has even, some rafting skills, then if they want to try that, go ahead. But I question the safety of that, especially in a year like this. And I think when you're going down the Clear Creek or you're in Littleton or you're in Salida or you're kind of in like a more established place, it's just you're surrounded by lots of people. The river is kind of almost geared specifically towards that kind of activity and it feels a lot safer. But the backcountry thing, I think if you're up for an adventure and you feel confident in your swimming ability, then try it and let us know how it goes.
Yeah, definitely those more established places seem like the better place to start, like Golden or Littleton. That I feel much more confident trying that.
Yeah, me too.
What else? I'm thinking I want to make a day of it. Like what do I need to be thinking about? Restaurants, like what are you thinking about?
I love the city of Golden. I think it's such a cute little town. I love walking around there downtown. A couple times I have just driven. It's like a 15-minute drive from where I live in downtown Denver. And I will just park and ride my bike around that like downtown bike trail that they have and then take a float down the river. I think that makes for a really nice day.
A bike ride to a tubing trip?
Yeah, it's nice. It's fun.
The best. Yeah. That sounds incredible.
Just the perfect Colorado day.
There's a great burrito place out there. Bonfire burritos.
Bonfire burritos.
Oh,
yeah, that
good.
one is a little. It's not quite right in the downtown. It's a little bit of a hike from downtown, but it's super, super good.
Oh yeah. All right, Allison. Just to wrap up here, I don't want to make anyone mad out on the river. Are there any unspoken rules or is there like etiquette to keep in mind?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is don't let trash in the river. Because if something escapes your tube, you're probably not going to get it back because it's floating faster than you are and just laws of physics are not in your favor in that situation. And taking care of our natural resources is really important. And it's just kind of a jerk move to let trash in. So that's the biggest one, I would say. Keep your things with you. The other one I would say is you are kind of in when you start your tubing adventure, the people who are around you when you start, you're going to be floating with them kind of the whole time because of the way that the river carries you. So try to be a good neighbor, if that makes sense. Like if you're drinking, don't try not to be, the obnoxious drunk guy who's yelling and drinking too much. And I think we've all tubed with that guy, and it's never fun. So I would just try to keep your noise level to a normal level. Try not to be screaming and obnoxious. Don't let trash in the river. Um, I would say those are the big ones. If you do happen to be thrown out of your tube, which happens a lot and it very likely could happen, stay calm, don't panic. You're going to be fine, unless you're on like a backcountry excursion in which you took a risk. But if you're in a place like Littleton or Golden or kind of a more established place, you're going to be fine. Just try to walk a little fast to catch up to the tube. Once you have the tube, try to pull over to like a flatter spot of the water, maybe kind of towards the shore, and then just get back in and keep on floating.
Well, Alison Berg, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to get out there. And here's what else Denverites are talking about. Violence and the police. Last week, Interim Police Chief Ron Thomas was speaking about some recent shootings downtown, and he warned that, quote, "We have an opportunity to have an even more violent summer than we did in 1993. Thomas was referring to what's often remembered as the summer of violence here in Denver, but that whole narrative has since been debunked as media hysteria over a small number of high-profile shootings. Another side of this story, of course, is the shaky state of our police department itself. City Auditor Tim O'Brien reported last week that DPD is struggling with low morale as they deal with retention and recruitment problems. I'm sure we'll be talking about all of this as the weather heats up, and we want to hear from you. Are you worried about a, quote, summer of violence? What would you do if you were Mayor-elect Mike Johnston? Leave us a voicemail with your name and neighborhood, and you might hear it on the show soon. That number is 720-500-5418. Again, it's 720-500-5418. That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed the show, why not take a minute to tell Interim Police Chief Ron Thomas about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Denver, by texting Denver to 66866. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you then. Tell your most tubular friends. Tell the tube rental guy. Tube rental.